بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي الحمد لله رب العالمين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون ولقد فتنا الذين من قبلهم وليعلمن الله الذين صدقوا وليعلمن الكاذبين صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات Your second salawat for love of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. And your loudest to hasten the avenger of Karbala, the master of our time, Sahibul Asr wa Zaman. There's a few points that usually are made in the start of Ayam Azah that it feels appropriate to make tonight by the munasabat of the fact that we're preparing our next generation to continue the commemoration of the sacrifice of Imam Hussain. There's a story, I'll start with a story first, of one of the great ulama of his time who used to teach Ba'th al-Kharij. And Ba'th al-Kharij is a scientific discussion and a debate on understanding the ability to derive Islamic law and how to understand what is the wajib and the haram of Islam. The Sayyid, who was the teacher, one day he came into his class, and instead of starting his lesson by doing hamd and thana, he began his lesson by reciting the Masa'ib of Imam Hussain. And all of the students, they stopped for a second. They said, "What is our teacher doing? He teaches a class, that's a science class, and now he's reciting a majlis." The teacher recited for a few minutes, and then he went back and he started his lesson. The student said, maybe something was different today. Okay, good to know. The next day the teacher came in and he did the same thing. He started reciting the Masa'ib of Imam Hussain, and then after that he started his class. After the third day, the students went to the teacher and they sat down and they said, "Sayyidina, you did something different, you've changed something, and we don't understand why, and we know that a teacher of your caliber doesn't do something by accident. There's a reason why you do things. So tell us, why did you change all of a sudden from just starting your class like normal to now all of a sudden reciting some of the Masa'ib every day of Imam Hussain and then starting your class?" The Sayyid says, "A few nights ago I had a dream. In my dream, it was the Day of Judgment. On the Day of Judgment, all of humanity had gathered, and they were standing in lines to have their questioning done. And I was placed in a line. I found myself in the line of the teacher of Madhab Ja'fari, Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq alayhi salam." The Sayyid continues, he says, "It's a great thing to be there, and I saw myself in the line, and at the front of the line I saw Imam Sadiq, and Imam Sadiq, what he was doing was he was asking and questioning everyone, and after he would question them, he would let them into heaven." I said, "What was he questioning?" He says, "Well, see, since Imam Sadiq is the teacher of the fiqh of our school of thought and the teacher of the Islamic law of our school of thought, all of the ulama who were teachers were standing in this line. But before Imam Sadiq would let a teacher into heaven, he would ask him about all of the rulings that he gave and why did he give those rulings." She says, "I saw myself in this line and I saw the questioning going very slowly, because if you've ever seen a book of Islamic laws, there's a lot of rulings that each teacher gives. So he says, as I was standing in this line and waiting for my turn to be questioned by Imam Hussain, I saw people to my right who were in another line who were running into heaven. They weren't walking, they were running. So I asked the angels, what is this line? Why are these people running into heaven? I'm in the line of Imam Sadiq. Why am I moving so slowly and these people are running into heaven? And he says, the malaika replied to me that this is the line of Imam Hussain. And all of these people, Imam Hussain is entering them into heaven by their association with Imam Hussain and being involved in the aza of Imam Hussain. So the Sayyid says, when I woke up, I decided that inshallah the day of judgment I want to be in the line of Imam Hussain, where Imam Hussain takes all those who are involved in his aza and commemorating his shahadat and being involved in this process and welcomes them into heaven in groups and in large numbers, one after another. So he says, therefore, I added to my lesson by commemorating the aza of Imam Hussain. The lesson the teacher is teaching, the reason he's changing his behavior, is he's showing that the wasila of Imam Hussain is so powerful that you can attach yourself to the benefit of Imam Hussain, and Imam Hussain can be the one who takes you into heaven if you attach yourself to the cause of Imam Hussain. Which is why our goal in these days of aza and in this time is that if we get an opportunity to participate in the majlis of Imam Hussain, if we get an opportunity to discuss the affairs of Imam Hussain, if we get an opportunity to share with people the cause of Imam Hussain, invite them to cry, invite them to remember Imam Hussain, don't think of it as a little opportunity. Think of it as a great blessing. And the fact that, mashallah, we're teaching our next generation to participate in this affair is very important. And it's something we need to promote. One of the things that, for example, is very difficult in how do we educate our children in this community, in this culture, is how to participate in the majlis of Imam Hussain. You see, many of our parents, they lived in a country where everybody went to the majlis, and everybody sat in the majlis. Everybody participated in the majlis. And it was a part of life that when Muharram came, Safar came, everything stopped, and we went to the majlis. In this country, it's not so easy. In this country, it's a little bit difficult because everybody's still watching. Well, the World Series was going on. People were watching that. They're watching the NBA season started. The NFL games are going on. And life is going on as normal, and you're expected to stop everything and come to a majlis. You're expected to leave everything, your friends, your games, your schoolwork, and come to a majlis. And that's challenging. It's difficult. Which is why, for the parents, it's a responsibility. Don't just bring your children here. Your responsibility doesn't end when you get to the parking lot. It doesn't work. You won't accomplish what you need to accomplish. A majlis is something you have to educate your children on the etiquette of being able to sit in the majlis, to listen to the majlis, and to cry in the majlis. You see, when everybody in the entire environment is weeping for Imam Hussain, it's easy to weep for Imam Hussain. But in this country, it's difficult. You have to sit your child with you, your son, your daughter, and let them sit with you and see you cry for Imam Hussain. That's how they learn to cry for Imam Hussain. See you invoke emotion and tears for Imam Hussain, and then they will learn to invoke tears and emotion for Imam Hussain. The responsibility doesn't end there. When you leave the majlis, you have to have the conversation. What did you listen to? What did you hear? What was discussed? What did you understand? And this is a responsibility that we put on our children, that we're paying attention to them, we're aware of them. It didn't end that, okay, I brought my child to the majlis and okay, fine, there you go, my responsibility is done. No, now I want to make sure that he knows there's accountability, or she knows there's accountability. It's not sufficient you came here and played with your friends. Let me know what you heard. Let me hear what you heard. Talk to me about what you understood. Is there a misconception you had? Was there something new that you learned? What was this experience? So that the child knows that someone's paying attention to me, that someone is making me accountable for the event that I came to and I listened to. As well as it gives us an opportunity to communicate with our children, to know what's in their minds, to know what's in their hearts. We have to promote that culture. We have to establish that culture. And it doesn't mean that just a father and a son have to have this experience, or a mother and a daughter. Us as adults, We need to talk to our children. We need to have conversations with children in our communities. You don't have to only ask your son. Ask any child. Have a conversation. Have a discussion with them about what they experienced, what they went through, what did they understand, what was something new that they learned, or did they hear this story, or did they hear this experience? It's not just the responsibility of the person who sits on the mimbar to do the education of Islam. It's on all of us to take part in the education of Islam and to discuss with children. And the biggest thing that we have to do is, if we want our children to be different in society, then we have to raise them different than the way society raises children. If children are not spoken to in society, we have to speak to our children. We have to have conversations. Sometimes we want, for example, Maulana, बच्चों को डांट दिया करें, आप उनको समझा दें कि वो आके बैठ जाए. Right? You want me to yell at the kids and tell them to come and sit? Then fine, they'll be afraid of me. They won't talk to me. Is that what you want? That they see Maulana coming and, go in the other direction, otherwise he'll make us sit in the majlis. No, that's not going to fix the problem. The culture is something that has to be taught. You can't leave your children open and exposed that they'll adopt the culture on their own. In a Muslim country, in a Shia community where the whole town changes, yes, they'll pick up the culture of the majlis from the entire town. All of their friends are involved, their families are involved, they're hosting majlises, there's programs every night, everywhere you go is black, everywhere you go is huzn for the months of Muharram and Safar. It doesn't exist like that here. It has to be something we're more active in with our children, with our community, with all of our children. So alhamdulillah, this is a great endeavor, and it establishes that our children will be attached to the aza of Imam Hussain. And which is why this is usually a conversation you have in the beginning of Muharram. So that for the entire Muharram Safar period, the parents, they get a refresher in this, that okay, we need to pay attention to the kids in the center, we need to talk to them, we need to go through all these experiences. And then they start this process for the next 2 months, and it's a kit. But the fact that we're having this majlis now makes it important, at least, that we discuss it now when we discuss the affairs pertaining to the idea that this majlis is something that requires an education to love and appreciate. And we have to train our children to appreciate this majlis, and we do that by involving them with us. We remember as children how our parents sat in a majlis. Maybe the first time we saw our father cry was in the majlis of Imam Hussain, doing the azah of Imam Hussain. And that taught us it was okay to sit in a majlis and cry. A child needs that experience. They need to know that it's okay. They need to know how to do that action. These are things that a third person teaching my son, or should I teach my son? I should teach my children. I should teach my family. I should teach every child I get the opportunity to how to love Imam Hussain. Khair. Very briefly, a short discussion today. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Our discussion the past 2 nights was on keeping alive the message of Imam Hussain after Ayam Azah. We talked about the concept of, for example, how shaitan is our enemy and to be aware of him and protect ourselves from him. We talked about, for example, the concept of mawaddat last night. Tonight, very briefly, is the conversation of perspective in life. As I mentioned, we have to teach our children perspective and concepts of awareness and how to live life and what their expectation from life is. Our society teaches children that life is meant to be good. That life, the goal of life is to get to a point in time where you have no worries, no problems, everything is fantastic, and you're having a good time. Success in life, according to the society we live in, not according to me, is that I have no worries. I have no problems. I have enough money to take care of my expenses. I go on vacation. I pay my bills. I have a nice house. And life is good. Islam doesn't necessarily share this experience. When we come here, when we commemorate, for example, the personality of Imam Hussain, no one here disagrees that Imam Hussain was the best of Allah's creation in his time. He was the grandson of the best of creation in the entire world, in the entire history of humanity. But then the question comes, if he was the best of humanity and the best of the creation of Allah and the most beloved creation of Allah, why did he go through so many trials? Why did he go through such difficulties? You see, the concept of the purpose of life conflicts between what Western society teaches us as success in life and what Islam teaches us as success in life. If success in life was to have a good life and no worries and no problems, there was no one more deserving of having a peaceful, perfect life than our holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But you take a look, and our holy Prophet himself says there was no man in humanity, no personality in the history of the world who suffered more than I suffered in this world. Conflict between the ideology of what Islam says and what we see as the example of the most perfect examples in Islam and what society tells us. Society tells us that we're a failure at life if we're going through trials and tribulations. We're a failure at life if we have problems in life. Why? Because a successful life is one that is lived in peacefulness and happiness and no issues, no problems. This is why we have to understand, what's the purpose of this life? Why are we here? What are we doing here? Is this life meant to be heaven? Is this life meant to be amazing and perfect? No. When we look at, for example, Surah Luqman, in the start of Surah Luqman, Allah says, أَحَسِبُ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يَفْتَنُونَ. Does mankind think that they will be left alone by saying that we have faith and they won't be tested? Allah is actually asking you. He says, do you think it's sufficient to say that I'm a Muslim, la ilaha illallah, and that's it, you're done, nothing to worry about? And he says, did you think that would be enough? And Allah continues, وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّ الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِهِمْ فَلَا يَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَلَا يَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبُونَ. Allah says, no, it's not sufficient. We tested all of those people who came before him so that Allah would know who amongst you was truthful in your claim to be faithful and who amongst you is a liar. The purpose of this life is not simply to have a good life and have a good time and enjoy this life and there you go. No, rather Allah is telling you the purpose of this life is that you will be tested in this life, that you say you have faith. Do you really have faith or you don't? That's the purpose of this life. Why? Because after this life, we want to go to heaven. We do want to go to heaven, right? If not, that's another conversation. Everybody who wants to go to heaven, recite aloud salawat. So Allah is telling you the purpose of this life is not that this is your heaven. This isn't your heaven. The purpose of this life is that if you're saying, I have faith, I believe in Allah, I want to go to heaven, I want to be rewarded by Allah, then you have to prove that you have faith in Allah. You have to live through trials and tribulations and difficulties because that's how Allah tests, are you telling the truth or not? Do you really have faith or not? Which is why when Allah set the example of what this life is like and how this life is a trial and a tribulation, He took the most beloved people that He loved, the best of all of His creation, and He put them through trials and tribulations to show you how you should be behaving when the trials and tribulations befall you in life. Which is why Allah tells you, not only does He tell you, did you think you would say you have faith and you wouldn't be tested? Allah says you're going to be tested. And then separately He tells you, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَجُوعٍ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ فَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ فَقَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. One point Allah is telling you, that the purpose of this existence is, don't just say you have faith, you're going to be tested. And understand something, that our philosophy of life here is that this is our testing ground, this is our place of sacrifice, this is our place of facing difficulties so that we can be rewarded with heaven. So that we can be in a place where there are no problems and no difficulties. That's why Allah says, not only am I going to test you, I'll even tell you what I'm going to test you with. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ. And we will test you. بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ. With something of fear. وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَأَنفُسِ وَثَمَرَاتِ. That Allah is telling you that I will test you with something of fear, something of insecurity. What is it? وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُم بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ. Hunger, khawf, fear, hunger, loss of wealth, loss of yourselves, and loss of your children. Let's tell you that these are all things that I reserve the right to test you with, to see, are you truthfully someone who keeps faith in Allah? Do you really believe in the religion of Islam or not? So, 3 points we'll mention here. First, where do these tests come from? 2, what do we do with these tests? How do we pass these tests? And how do we learn from the example of Ahlul Bayt? When we take a look at these tests, we look at the categories that Allah has said. He gave us 5 categories. He says fear. For example, that you are fearful for your lives, you are fearful for safety, you are fearful for security, you don't have these things. Hunger, that you don't have sufficiency within your means, that you don't have enough food for yourself, you don't have enough resources for yourself. Loss of wealth. At times we have enough. At times we have lots. And then it disappears. Allah takes it away. At times we have, for example, where we didn't do anything wrong, we're living a healthy life, we're doing good things, and all of a sudden we get sick. An illness befalls us. And at other times it's not us who get sick, but our family, our loved ones, and they get separated from us. Allah says these are all categories I can test you with. So the question is, how does this test happen? There are 2 ways that we get these tests. One of the ways that we get these tests is a consequence of our own actions. Sometimes we make a decision in life, and based upon that decision, we bring a test upon ourselves. For example, I make the decision on the day before my test, I'm going to stay up all night and I'm going to play video games. And the next day my test comes, and I'm like, oh Allah help me, Ya Allah save me. Nadi aliyan madhar al-ajaib. Every dua I can think of, Imam Zaman help me, so and so help me, so and so. Who can help me in this time? And then sure enough, I make all of my du'as and I sit down for my test and I fail. Where was Nadi aliyan now? Where was Imam Zaman now? How come nobody helped me now? What we like to assume is that because I ask Allah, the consequences of my actions will disappear. That I won't have to suffer the result of the decisions that I make. But some of the tribulations we have in life are exactly that, the consequences of the actions that we chose to perform. Shall I give you an example? Yeah? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Nabi Adam alayhi salam, our grandfather. He was in heaven. Fantastic. He was told to stay away from the tree. Did he approach the tree? Yes? Was Allah upset with him for that? Was there a consequence for that? He was cast out of heaven and onto this earth. And then Nabi Adam did istighfar for this. He asked Allah's forgiveness. Allah forgave him. Did he go back to heaven? Consequences of that action didn't go away. The consequences of an action don't just go away just because I did istighfar or I did dua. If I don't study and I ask Allah, Allah forgive me, please forgive me. Next time I swear I'll study all night, I'll study all week, I'll study all month. Please, just let me pass this test. The consequences of my decision don't go away. Some of the trials and tribulations we bring on ourselves in this life are the consequences of our actions and poor decisions. A person, for example, who smokes for 30 years and all of a sudden he gets lung cancer. At that point in time that he has lung cancer, he's making dua, Ya Allah, give me shifa'ah. Ya Allah, make the cancer go away. Make me healthy again. But that cancer, that sickness, is a consequence of the decisions that he made. He brought the trial upon himself because of the poor decisions he made. The same way us in our lives, don't just imagine that Allah all of a sudden makes me sick. For example, na'uzubillah, all of a sudden Allah decides that I should have high blood pressure. Baba, you've been eating oily food for the past 40 years. You haven't paid attention to your salt content for 40 years. Yeah, the consequence of not taking care of yourself is that you will have a trial and a tribulation. A person eats donuts every day and then complains, how did I become a diabetic? These are the consequences. One of the processes that tribulations befall us is the decisions that we make. Make good decisions. Think ahead in your decision of what the consequences of my action will be to prevent some of the difficulties that befall us in life. Don't assume that simply I can ask Allah, Ya Allah, forgive me. Allah may forgive you, but that won't make the consequences of your decision go away. The consequences of your decision remain. And sometimes it's those consequences of our decisions that give us trials and tribulations in our life. So we want to be careful. The other side is those trials and tribulations that befall us that Allah has designated to happen to us. That we did everything right. We did everything good. We did everything we were supposed to. We went to work every day. We went to school every day. We ate healthy. We did exercise. We did everything we were supposed to. And all of a sudden a tsunami came and washed away my house. When it comes to trials and tribulations like these are those trials that Allah has designated to befall people to know that are they honest and truthful in the promise and the commitment that they made that they keep faith in Allah. At that moment when I did everything right, I was a good person, I fulfilled all of my obligations, and still things went wrong. Do I have faith in Allah? Or do I just assume the world is a bad place and bad things happen, heck with everything, I don't care about anyone? These are the tests that Allah is talking about, that He says, I want to see that when you are in a state of difficulty, whether you brought that difficulty upon yourself, or Allah designated that difficulty to befall you in your life, what do you do at that point in time? What do we do? How do we behave in that characteristic, in that behavior? And this is where Allah says, فَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ, that those who are successful in these tests are those who are patient. Our goal is that, fine, if I keep faith in Imam Hussain, I came to these majlises for 2 months, I attended every majlis every weekend, did everything I was supposed to, I'm a good person. I cried for Imam Hussain, I recited Marsiya, I did Matam, I prayed on time, I did all of these things, and all of a sudden I leave the majlis and some drunk driver comes and hits my car. Now I wind up in rehab, I wind up sick, I wind up all these things. What is my thought process at that point in time? Am I someone who says, I did all the right things and yet still Allah punished me? These things are not a punishment from Allah. If Allah was to punish us, look at the nations in history, how Allah punished them. The tribe of Thamud, the people who killed the camel of Nabi Saleh. When Allah punished them, how many of them are still alive? When Allah took Fir'aun and punished Fir'aun for attacking the Bani Israel and for being against Nabi Musa and refusing to accept Allah, did Fir'aun live through that experience? How about the people of Nabi Nuh who went against Nabi Nuh and didn't listen to him? When Allah punished them, what happened to them? Did they live? Are they alive? No. Allah's punishment is something that as soon as He gives you that punishment, He says, okay, come back to me now it's time for the rest of your punishment. This isn't the punishment of Allah, this is the test of life that we're going through to see that when things aren't going your way, when things aren't perfect and you aren't happy and everything isn't going well, what do you do in this time? How do you behave? And this is where Allah says, I want you to be patient. فَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Give glad tidings to those who are patient when these difficulties befall them. How do we be patient? You see, traditionally, when something goes wrong for a person or they're having a bad day, they take it out on the one after them. So for example, if your dad had a bad day at work, you come home and you know to hide from dad. Dad's having a bad day today. Dad comes home and takes it out on mom. Now mom's having a bad day. Now mom turns around, what does she do? She takes it out on the kids. Kids, what do? They take it out on each other. You see, when something happens to me and everybody around me has to suffer the consequences of the difficulty I'm going through, that's not patience. That's not an action that Allah is going to reward. That's not an action that Allah is pleased with. Patience is that action that when something befalls me, the person next to me doesn't even know something happened. Patience is that action where the problem is mine. I'm going through the difficulty. I'm not punishing the people around me for the challenges I'm going through in life. My bad day doesn't become everybody else's bad day. That's where patience comes in. And patience is something that our Holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "As-sabru ra'su min al-iman." That patience is the head of faith. That if faith was a human body, right, was a human being, that human being is alive as long as they have a head attached to them. If you take off that head, what happens to the human body? Doesn't work anymore. Can't go drink a cup of coffee anymore. Can't go out and have fun anymore. Can't do much of anything anymore. The same way our Prophet explained, he says, those of you who claim to have faith, if you have no patience, you really have no faith. Because the same way that body is useless without its head, faith is useless without its head, and the head of faith is to be patient. Which means that our responsibility is that if we believe in Allah, if we have certainty that Allah exists and Allah is present, and we go through a trial in life, that we should be patient and not make our problem the problem of other people. When I take my problem and make it the problem of other people, it means that there's no one else who's going to compensate me for it, so I have to make everybody else feel the consequences of what I'm going through. But if I have yaqeen that Allah is compensating me for the difficulties I go through in life, the trials I go through in life, then why do I care if people know I have a problem? Why do I care if people compensate me for my difficulties? Which is why our goal is that the best example to understand how to handle our difficulties and problems is the example of the Ahlul Bayt. For the past 2 months, you've been discussing the examples of the Ahlul Bayt. You've been discussing the examples of Imam Hussain, of Imam Zainul Abidin, of Bibi Zainab, of the Ahlul Bayt and the Prophet and his family, and how they went through so much difficulty, so many problems. But let me ask you, did they ever stop helping people? Did they ever turn around and say that we want nothing to do with people, or we suffered, now you suffer? Look at the example of our fourth Imam. Our fourth Imam was that personality that when Marwan ibn Hakam, who was the governor of Medina, who was responsible for Imam Hussain having to flee Medina because he was going to try to kill Imam. When the Banu Umayyah are in the process of being deposed and Marwan ibn Hakam loses his position as the governor of the township, he knows that the people of Medina are going to attack him. And he has his entire family and he needs to run away and he needs to flee, but he can't take all of the women and children and run away. So what does he do? He turns to the house of Imam Zainul Abidin and he goes to the Imam and he says, I need sanctuary for my women and children. The same one who was responsible for imprisoning the women and children of Ali Muhammad is now seeking refuge in the house of Ali Muhammad. But the Imam doesn't refuse him. He says, you can stay here, your family can stay here as long as they want, they'll be secure, no one will bother your family. Imam Zainul Abidin went through so many difficulties and tribulations. There's the narration that says that a man came to our fourth Imam and said to him, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, I've committed so many sins, Allah can't forgive me. And Imam says, but Allah is greater than any sin, He can forgive anything. The man says, no, but you don't understand what I've done. I am one of those who was present in the field and was one of the killers of your father, Hussain ibn Ali. Is there any way that Allah can forgive me? Now imagine, someone who's responsible for killing your family in the worst of ways. Think about it, 1400 years later, we never met Imam Hussain, but they killed Imam Hussain in such a way that society, when they hear the masayib of Imam Hussain, they weep. And here is a man who comes to the son of Imam Hussain and says, is there any way that Allah can forgive me? Did Imam turn him away and Imam said, no, go away. No, I wish you were dead. Imam says, even you can be forgiven. If you were to recite Salatul Ghufayla, Allah can even forgive this sin from you. Look at how merciful and kind and aware the Imam is that Allah knows all the good and the bad, and my patience in doing the right thing in every situation, Allah rewards me for. That's the lesson that we need to learn when we come to these majalis, and one of the things that we need to carry on for the rest of the year, for the rest of this time that we have.
We rejuvenate ourselves in these months. We remember the examples of Ahlul Bayt, that though they suffered through difficulties, though they went through trials and tribulations, they never stopped doing the right thing. They never stopped doing the things that Allah loves and staying away from the things that Allah hates. No test were they given that they said that, oh, I don't want to pray anymore because of what happened to me. No test did they go through that they didn't recite Quran anymore, that they didn't love Allah anymore. Which is why that's the lesson to us. We're going to be tested. This is a place of trial and tribulation. Allah has told us that. And He's given us examples to follow, that when you go through difficulty, behave like them. We want to be like them and we want to follow their example. And that's what we need to apply. Don't imagine that your life is going to be perfect and amazing, because that's not the purpose of this world. The purpose of this world is to see, are you worthy of going to heaven? Remember, here you can live for 80 years, maybe 100 years, then you die. And by the time you get enough money to do something with it, you're too old to do anything with it. Heaven is that place where there is no moment of sorrow, and there's no old age, and there's no limitation to what Allah can give you, and the food tastes better, and there's no heart disease. That's what our goal is. Don't be sidetracked in this world that I need to be happy now, or why am I going through difficulty now? Understand that this difficulty has a compensation, and you want that compensation, and the way you get that is by being patient in these tribulations. These are the final days of Azab, where we commemorate the returning of the Ahlul Bayt to the city of Medina. The return of the family of Rasulullah and the daughters of Rasulullah to Medina was very difficult for them. Remember, when they left Medina, they had personalities like Akbar and Qasim and Hazrat Abbas with them. When they came back to Medina, they stopped outside of the city of Medina and they said, we won't go in. We're disappointed in ourselves. Bibi Kulthum famously recites a piece of poetry. She says, O city of our grandfather, don't accept us. When we left you, we were full of light, and we have come back empty and alone. Bibi Zainab, she set up a place for the women of their group to sit together and remember all of their shuhada. And she told them, don't let anyone else in other than us. A woman came and she said, someone has come to the door and she has asked to enter. Bibi Zainab says, who is it? She says, it's al-Banin who has come to pay her respects to you. Bibi Zainab replied, al-Banin is from amongst us. Her sorrow is as great as our sorrow. Let her come in. Bibi Zainab hugs al-Banin and she begins to weep. Remember, al-Banin was that wife of Amir al-Mu'mineen who raised Bibi Zainab, who was in her life and was like a mother to her. And Bibi Zainab hugs al-Banin and she begins to cry and she says, oh mother al-Banin, if you would have seen how they took our family from us. They took our children from us. They put us in difficulty, but still we could not save the son of Fatima to Zahra. Al-Banin, in that moment she weeps. She says, oh Zainab, I am worried that I am embarrassed in front of you. As Bibi Zainab says, why would you be embarrassed, O Al-Banin? She says, I don't know that my son Abbas did enough to protect the son of Zahra. Bibi Zainab recounts, she says, oh mother Al-Banin, if you would have seen your Abbas when he entered the battlefield, that even the enemy was astounded by him. Remember something, that Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas was unique amongst the sons of Amir al-Mu'mineen. There is a narration that talks about in the battle of Siffin, Amir al-Mu'mineen took Muhammad Hanafiya and made him the alamdar, made him the flag bearer, and said to Muhammad Hanafiya, attack the army. The army started launching arrows and Muhammad Hanafiya stood and waited, and Amir al-Mu'mineen turned to him and said, Muhammad Hanafiya, why didn't you go attack? He says, well, the enemy is shooting arrows. I am waiting for them to stop, then I will go and attack. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, I am your father, the Amir, I commanded you, and you're worried about their arrows? Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas was that personality that when Imam Hussain gave him permission, the enemy shot arrows, it did not stop Abbas from entering the battlefield. When the tabarrukat were taken from the Ahl al-Haram, and they were presented that these are the booty that we have stolen from the Banu Hashim, One of the things that was brought before Yazid was the flag, was the pole that Abbas held in his hand. Yazid looked at this and he says, I see this entire pole covered in arrows and burned, except for two places. Why is it that there are two places where there is no arrow, there is no mark, there is nothing here? They said this is the place where Abbas held the flag. Abbas did not let go of the flag of Imam Hussain. No matter what they shot at him, he took the wounds on himself, but he would not let the flag be hurt. Because this was the representation of his Imam. This is why when the tabarrukat were returned to the women in the prison, when they received the flagpole and the pole that Abbas held, all of the women began to kiss the places of the hands of Hazrat Abbas. They laid their cheeks on the places. They said, oh Abbas, you left us alone. We needed your bravery. Al-Baneen, if you would have seen the bravery of your son in the battlefield, the entire army ran in fear of him. They described Al-Baneen would sit in Medina and make the graves of her 4 sons and then move them and make one large grave and cry over Imam Hussain. Al-Baneen, one of the things that she said is, she says, my son Abbas was very tall. But Zainab has told me, and they have told me that they killed my son Abbas by striking him on the head with a mace. My son Abbas was tall. Who was tall enough to strike the head of Abbas with a mace? Al-Baneen, if you would have seen, Abbas, when he wanted to return with the water to the camp, the enemy knew that we wanted to stop Abbas, so they attacked Abbas with treachery. They came from behind trees. They cut his right arm. Abbas did not stop. They cut his left arm. Abbas did not stop. Eventually, they shot arrows at him until they pierced the water skin of Abbas that he carried. Al-Baneen, if you would have seen, as the water left the water skin, so did the life leave the chest of Abbas. Then they began to shoot arrows, but still Abbas wanted to return until they shot an arrow in the eye of Abbas. When his eyes became full of blood, he could not see anymore, Al-Baneen. So one who has hands removes arrows with his hands. Abbas, your son, did not have hands to remove his arrow. Al-Baneen, your Abbas lowers his head, tries to remove the arrow with his knees so he can return to Imam Hussain. This is the condition in which they struck Abbas on his head. And Abbas finished his journey and said, I can no longer return to my Imam. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون ندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم. 10 times raise your hands and call out by the wasila of this majlis, Ya Allah, 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 Ya Mahmud بحق محمد, Ya A'la بحق علي, يا فاطر السماوات بحق فاطمة, يا محسن بحق الحسن, يا قديم الإحسان بحق الحسين. Oh Allah, accept this small ibadat from us. Ya Allah, forgive our sins and cover our flaws. Ya Allah, there are those amongst our community, our families, and the mu'mineen around the world who are sick. By the mention of Masa'ib of Ali Muhammad, give shifa'ah to the mu'mineen wherever they may be. Ya Allah, there are those of us who have gathered here with hajat. There are those of our families who are in need. Ya Allah, by the right of this majlis, fulfill the hajat of the mu'mineen. Ya Allah, make us from the upright supporters of Sahib al-Zaman. Make our children from the upright supporters of Sahib al-Zaman. Entitle us to shifa'ah of Abdullah in dunya and akhirah. Matam ya Hussain.